Hey, how's it going? I finally watched Five Nights at Freddy 2. I did, did I'm a I'll give you my take on it. I obviously I'm gonna give you my take on it, but I was watching it and when it first opened up, I'm like I looked at the reviews, okay? The Rotten Tomatoes is horrible. Critics is sitting at, audience score, which is us, is 86. So I decided to watch it because I wanted to watch it one, and I liked the first one. So, and I have a knack of watching movies that a lot of people don't like, or some people like me like movies that are not that good. So anyway, I went into it, and I ain't gonna lie, I can see why the critics was harping on this movie, but I ain't gonna tell you I didn't like this movie because at the end, overall, I like this movie, and I'm gonna tell you why I like this movie. Because I was born in 1959. And I think for me, when I used to watch movies back when I was a child, man, anytime something was like a monster or a puppeteer monster or just a little science fiction-y, I was just so fascinated. You got to understand, TVs were black and white back then, and my imagination was just, you got to understand, kids that was born in the 40s and the 50s, even in the 60s, they had an imagination. Not kids don't have imagination. Kids have imagination still. But when the movie starts, I remember watching the opening, and the girl got killed, and she rescued the little kid, and then she got stabbed, and then she fell into the arms of that little that I've never in the first original Five Nights at Freddy movie that that one robot that came out from the ground. I've never seen that before, so I said, "Oh, this is interesting," but when I watched that, I was like, out of all the kids, and that kid went and got grabbed by that one guy that was dressed up like one of those Five Nights at Freddy character, and the girl seen her, and then the girl that was the guy's daughter, she was little at that time, and she told that girl not to go back there, but she went back there anyway and rescued that little boy. But she tried to warn parents that that little kid was taken in the back. And here's where it got messed up. And this is where I have to tell you, I agree with the critics. I'm like, not one parent seen a kid missing. And I get it. You're in there. And at that time, I remember when Chuck E. Cheese's was real big. When you go in there, it's just a bunch of kids running around. And Chuck E. Cheese's was a big thing. And, most parents probably didn't think their kid got kidnapped because they was playing with other kids or they kept an eye. But I was like, man, most moms and dads would keep an eye on that little girl and that little boy that got grabbed by that guy dressed up like a robot, and then the girl went in there to rescue, and then he stabs her in the back, and then she's yelling, and then all the parents just stared, literally stood there and stared. I went like, yeah, I said, yep, that's the part the critics don't like because it made no sense. Because most parents, man, they don't play that kind of crap. Even though today's society's kind of messed up, and today's society is messed up, but I was like, man, if a little kid was grabbing on me and telling me, hey, something's going on, I'd have grabbed another person. I said, hey, man, I said, this little girl says something going on. So most grown people would have been like, well, let's go check it out. But I can see where you know, uh, the critics didn't like that part. So I was like, yeah, I get that. So then she dies in the arms of that thing that she was waiting on, which I have never seen this thing before. So then you go on into the movie. This goes back in time. So you flash forward, and then the original characters. It goes into the original characters. Then of course you got the brother and the little sister that's got the house, and then you got the woman that was a cop. She's she woke up from whatever she is, and she's still friends with the brother and the little girl, because the brother and the little sister's bigger now, so, and she's missing her friends and all that kind of stuff. So, but there was this paranormal group that wanted to go to this place and investigate the original one, the one that was the original store. But what freaked me out was the critics probably picked up on this too. The one that was in the original Five Nights at Freddy were those other robots that was possessed by souls. That was a different store. But I didn't know. I was like, how is it that, they did not know that original store was in that town. And what gets me, it wasn't too far from where they lived. So I said, man, I gotta give the critics credit again. I said I could see why they didn't. I could see why they wasn't into this, and they give it such a bad. The Rotten Tomato score is so bad. So I'm watching. So then you go to the part where there's this creepy guy, and he's got these people going to the original Freddy's, cheese place in it. And when they walk in, there's these paranormal investigators was like, I've never seen this one before. Oh, wow, this one had a waterfall. But then when you watch the beginning of it, there was people that was kids was in boats, going through this little river that they had built into the thing. But, in the original, and the one that was in Five Nights at Freddy, you didn't have that because they had like a little river water thing going around there. So it's pretty slick how they put that together. But obviously they go in there. The guy's extremely creepy. And they go in there to see if they could get any spirits and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, I'll guarantee you get some spirits. But he set them up to kind of like get killed to me. And there was the girl that got killed in the like back in 1980. Her spirit was locked up in this big box that looked like a big box with a present. And when the girl... But they obviously said, well, why don't let's split up. Let's go over here. Let's go over there. Let's go over there. So I'm sitting there going like, yeah, I said, critics again. I can see why the critics like, because when I go in a place like that, no, we sticking together. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, man, if something happened, they're going to have to take us all out because it's going to be very hard, even though they probably succeed, but it's going to be hard to take us all out at the same time. But one went this way. One decided to stay back. The girl went to go, investigate. That's when she came up on this big box that was a present. And then when she stopped, there was a little box that down by the big box, and it was playing this music. And she stopped it. And then the box opened up, and then that's when that first robotic thing came out that I've never seen before. And it attacked her and absorbed her soul, kind of. I'm sitting there going like this, girl, you should have took somebody with you. And then the one guy that was creepy, there's something about him too. He was standing there, and the guy's like, he heard her yell. He goes, hey, what's going on? And he looks at him, and the guy just looks at him all crazy. And then it shows these robotic hands grabbing him, and it takes him up and just kills him. But it didn't show him actually killing. It just shows him throwing the body behind him and stuff. So I was like, okay. And then this dude, man, goes to this waterway. And he's walking, and he falls into the water. Now, I'm watching, and I'm sitting there going, okay, obviously, I fall in that thing, knowing that water's that damn old, and that thing's been shut down, that water's got to be just, ugh. So I would have jumped out right away. No, he just keeps walking. What? He's doing all this? And I said, critics again, because instantly, most people, if they fall in that kind of water, knowing that water's never been changed out or filtered out, knowing it's that water's sitting there all like that, you'd have went in there and you'd have just got the left and you'd have got out. But he stays in the water and just keeps going. What is that? What is that? What is that? And then he gets killed. So that was that part. And then when that thing came out and that girl looked up, and I think that's played by Kenna Grace, she looked up and she's like, oh, and then it absorbed her soul some kind of way. And then the guy that invited him there, he runs outside and he goes, I set you free or something like that. So then it goes to the original cast that was in the first movie. And then she goes to school, and then there's this asshole teacher. And I said myself, the critics are looking at this. I said, they set him up. They set him up so bad. The movie looked like, yeah, he's going to get killed. And sure enough, he got killed. And that guy that played that school teacher was in Seinfeld. He's a lot older now. I often wonder whatever happened to him. But he has a science project where they never lost, and they got to learn how to build these robots. And so he didn't want that girl. He didn't want that girl participating because he didn't think that she was going to be make a good robot. So he did some shady stuff in there. So they set him up to be the a-hole. So I knew he was going to get killed, and sure enough, he got killed. But with all that being, there was parts in here that I was like, how are you being able to go over there and then make it back over here, and at the same time she's over there, and so I'm looking at I was like, this is why the critics give this a bad, bad review, Rotten Tomato score. But what gets me is overall, you guys, I still like this movie. I think it's just that I like those robots. When those robots started coming around, man, and the way those robots was walking around, and then the story was, they could tighten up on that story, but once those robots, man, started coming around, man, I was all in, man, because I think that's what kept me, because I never got tired, I never got bored, but I did say, that's critics, yeah, I see the critics there, yeah, I see the critics there, I definitely see the critics there. I think this could have really been not as hard on the critics if they would have took out some things. Like, for one, let's just say how the movie opens up where the girl goes and that little girl tells the other little girl, don't go in there, don't go in there. And I'm like, I'm going to tell the parents. So she tried to tell the parents, but the parents, when you watch how the parents react, most parents don't react like that. Hey, I'm talking. Not right now. You know, it's just, it didn't feel right. So they messed up there. And then, obviously, that little girl was that guy's father who was doing all the killing those kids. And then when you fast forward, that little girl's missing her friends, you know, the original cast, the big brother and his little sister, and she's talking now, she's bigger and stuff. And then that one black guy that was in the beginning of the movie, he's in this movie too. His character was still the same kind of, he's helping him paint the house and everything like that. And the brother still acts the same, he acts the same as he did in the first movie. And then he's taking care of his little sister, but his little sister's a little bit more talkative and stuff. So I like that part, and she wanted the friends back, but then she ends up he ends up he goes out with that woman, and she goes, oh, you going on a date? And he goes, yeah, it's not a date. She goes, well, how come I can't go? He goes, because you can't. She goes, well, then it's a date. So she was a lot more looser this time, but he did like her, but she was hiding something. And so he gets back, and then he finds out she goes to that old building that they were in the first movie. So he goes there, and she's sitting in the middle of the floor because they're not, you know, he can't find any of them. They're all in the first movie. You know, the possessions that was in those things, they kind of like went dormant. She was just upset. So he says, if you want to grab something in here, that's like you can have anything in here, and you know. So she's seen this little thing that's like it was a toy that would talk, and so she takes that toy home. So then later on, the toy tells her to go to this other store, and then that's when she ends up going to this other store, and then the way they had it set up was that girl knew that other store existed, but she set up a parameter because the original robots these robots was pretty slick. They were more newer looking. They weren't all broke down and stuff. And I did like that. And I did like the way they talk. And then when they left, they was, because the moral of the story was the girl that got killed. She was, her soul was unrest because she was upset that nobody took her serious, and she was upset that some of those parents could have saved her. So she was going to use those robots to go kill some of those parents. Something like that. But there was some jumping around I couldn't believe, because the brother was supposed to go to school to watch his sister being, you know, school project, and he says, I'll be back. But when he goes, but I'm like, how you have all this time to get all this stuff done and then try to get back to her? And then she gets upset because the school teacher sees that she had a robot she built and he didn't like it, and he drops it, and I was like, the way he dropped it, the way he was acting, I was like, and then she leaves the school, and then she comes back with that other robot. But then the school teacher that was the ego, he was like, what is this thing? He goes, you need to take that suit off. And I'm sitting there, everybody's like looking at this thing, and they're all amazed. And I'm like, you got this one school teacher, man, that's sitting there saying that somebody was in a suit? Not me. If I was a school teacher, I'd have been like, dang, girl, where'd you get this at? You sure ain't nobody in this suit? And I would have been like, going like this building, trying to see if there's wires up under there. But he didn't even try to look. He just said it was somebody in the suit. So but this one, it gets good. So she said, he looks at her. She goes, well, I'll be back. I want to find out just what's going on inside his head. So she walks and finds the school teacher. That's the a-hole. She goes, and he, it gets a little creepy. And then he looks and he looks through this door and there's these eyes. And that was pretty creepy. And the robot ends up killing him. She goes, I want to see what's inside your head. So she crushed his head and stuff. So, but there was some redeeming qualities in this one. Don't get me wrong. It is not a very good movie, but I bought it. I spent $24 on digital, and I wanted it. And I ain't gonna lie, you guys. I'll give this like from 100. If you want to give it 100% Rotten Tomatoes, if you want to give it a 100%, I would give it a 62. But I really liked it when it got to the robots. I really did. I like when all the robots was activated. I liked the climax when they had the climax. When they had the climax, they all was like, the guy that was the brother, they had to go at his house to rescue his sister. And then when he goes in there, there's this dude that comes out of nowhere and he goes, who's this guy? And she goes, oh, I meant to tell you that's my brother. And he looks at her like, you kept that from me. So that really made him mad because she didn't tell him she had a brother. So the dad that was doing all the killing had 2 little kids. But he was killing these kids, but he had 2 little kids. Then it showed the dad. It showed flashbacks of his dad, which was the same character that played his dad in the first movie. So, yeah, you guys. I did watch Five Nights at Freddy 2. But to be honest with you, I can watch this movie over right now. It wouldn't bother me. It's something about Five Nights at Freddy, the robots and the way it's just, I don't know why I like these movies that are not that good. And I know from what everybody's saying, I can see why the critics give this such a bad, the critics. Audience score wise, I'm with the audience. This movie is making money. I mean, it couldn't have cost that much to make this movie, and it's definitely making money. It made money off me because I spent $24 digital, and I'm going to buy it on physical, on 4K copy when it comes out because I got the 4K copy here, I do believe, somewhere in this house. I have to look for it. So I tried to look for that the other day. I don't know if I can find it or not. But anyway, yeah, that's my take on that, you guys. So I can see why it has a poor Rotten Tomato score. And I can see why it's got an 86% or 87% audience score. Because I'm in there with the audience, man. I think it's just those robots, man. I just think it's just those robots. They could do so much with this franchise, but I think that if somebody was to write this again, I think they ought to really try to tighten up that script. Something. There's so many little things they could have done that could have made this so much better. But overall, you guys, I ain't gonna lie, I like this movie. And this movie is not that good at all. But I like it. And that's all I can tell you. I don't know why, but I liked it. Because when it got to the robots, and they was interacting with those robots, and the way the robots was trying to kill people, and the stuff like that, and the way it just, especially when they went to those buildings and stuff like that, and they found out there was this original building before all the other ones was built and all that, yeah. This really could have been there's a few things that they would have not, I told you earlier, they could have done a couple of things different. It probably would have been not so bad as critic score. But as far as audience score, I'm with the audience, man. Oh yeah, I enjoyed this movie just for the robots alone. We'll catch you next video. God bless.